Hello everyone and good evening. This is the second video discussion for this semester. This week's discussion prompt is to explain the differences between freedom and liberty. The meanings and uses of these concepts often seem to overlap and were certainly intertwined in the different sources that we looked at. For example, the Walsh article mentions Aristotle's use of the term eleutheria, which was translated, according to Walsh, as meaning both liberty or freedom. And so for this discussion, I'm just going to highlight some of the key distinctions mentioned in the assigned materials over the past several weeks. As mentioned in several of the articles, but particular to the video presentation by Dr. Roberts, there are etymological differences in the roots and origins of the meanings of these words. So for instance, Dr. Roberts talks about freedom and the German root for it meaning neighborly. He also mentions the classical world's definitions of liberty or libertas. So the word in Western society develops in different places and in different ways. One of the major themes seem to be the philosophical differences between the two ideas. Typically, freedom was used in existential context. The ability to use reason. Walsh mentions through Aristotle that freedom is a condition of the soul rather than a conventionally granted civil status. She also quotes that the free man possesses reason and directs himself toward an end which is not outside of self, but belongs to himself. And in the work by Daniel Hannan, he states that freedom is often discussed in terms of powers granted beyond the king, but tied to the people and the land. So freedom is often used in more natural rights, individual rights, and things of that sort, whereas liberty is often more connected to political concepts and structures. And that idea is discussed, for example, in the Kennedy article. In the process of defining liberty, Kennedy discusses a tension within the concept of liberty. Kennedy quotes Chaim Wierzbowski, who states that within the concept of libertas, between the civil rights of the citizen and the authority, is that it's between the civil rights of the citizen and the authority of the state. So when we start talking about liberty, we begin moving from individual natural law, natural rights, something within yourself, more in the ether. And when we discuss liberty, it's often when discussing civil rights and terms of state authority. The other thing I noticed was that there were different types of freedom and liberty. For instance, as we talked about last week or the week before in the Rosenthal article, there were ideas such as negative freedom and positive freedom, negative liberty and positive liberty. So it was clear there were also different types of freedom that could be defined and then compared. So in conclusion, the readings from this semester show the concepts of freedom and liberty are often intertwined and can be difficult to separate. Freedom tends to be linked more toward individual reasonings and the existential conditions of the soul in some cases, whereas liberty is more connected to political structures and things like civil rights. Understanding the distinctions between these two, when we look at thinkers like Aristotle and Cicero, or even the more modern interpretations that we read, I think it definitely helps when discussing these concepts to clarify that they are unique terms that often come together, and both terms in the end help us to work towards shaping society and the forms of governments that we use. So I appreciate you listening. Thank you for joining me in this discussion, and I look forward to continuing these conversations throughout the semester. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.